Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mayank and I'm a second year student at HEC Paris. And in this video, I'm gonna answer some really good questions that I received about my program experience at HEC. Also, if you've noticed, my background and my surroundings have changed, and this is because I finally moved back to campus. If you're on campus and you're watching this, let's chat, message me on Instagram and we'll hang out. Alright, let's get into the questions. The first one is, how international is HEC? Do students stay constrained to groups of their own nationality, or are they open to intermingling and meeting everyone else? Okay, so I remember reading somewhere at some point that there were more than 100 nationalities on campus, across all programs. I think it is safe to say that HEC Paris is quite international just by the sheer number of nationalities and the variety of people that come over here. People come here from all over the world, and it's extremely fascinating and interesting to be doing group projects and attending classes and partying and doing all these things with people who come from so many different places. There's a lot that can be learned from everyone's different ways of thinking and different perspectives in life. And from that sense, HEC Paris is definitely quite international. Do students stay constrained to groups of their own nationality? I think that really depends. I feel like by default, yes. In my experience, I feel like a lot of students, especially in the M1, stick to groups of their own nationality, especially in the beginning. But that doesn't mean that they're opposed to meeting new people. It's just that it's the easiest and it's the best default to just stick to the group of your own nationality. Also, I think that at HEC, because it's a master's program, people come with their own fixed objectives and goals. And it's not like the bachelor's where everyone is just like completely an empty slate. A lot of people already have fixed goals and objectives of their time at HEC, and many people tend to not make that much of an effort to mingle with everyone else. I think you can definitely make good close friends at HEC, but the system I feel like is just not designed for that. For the Indians in my audience, I found it similar to doing IIT JEE coaching in 11th and 12th. You go there with a very fixed objective and you hang out with people with similar objectives, and that's what tends to happen. So yeah, I mean, especially in my first year, 2 years back, I remember that they had segregated us in the residences based on our nationality, and I think that definitely also contributed to people sticking with their own nationality, which was not good. But this year I've seen that they've basically randomized everyone, and everyone in every building is just with everyone else. So I think, let's see this year, I feel like maybe that's gonna happen less, but in my first year people did stick to groups of their own nationality. But that being said, that's what most people do. If you're asking whether you can make friends from all over the world and not stay constrained to your nationality, then absolutely hell yes. I, for example, have a very multicultural group of friends. I have friends who are American, French, Canadian, Russian, Dutch, Chinese, and Indians. So yeah, you get the point. All I'm trying to say is that it might not happen naturally, because by default, people, including you, might tend to stick to your own nationality just because you're in a foreign country and no one else speaks the same language as you and it's just comfortable. But if you're willing to go against the grain and take some extra efforts, you can definitely make friends from all over the world, because I know I did. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely possible. The funny thing, however, is that there's a big disconnect between the international students at HEC and the French. So while you'll be interacting with and working with people from all over the world, from all these different countries, you're probably not likely to be hanging out and interacting and even attending classes or doing group projects with the French students. That's because the French students, while we attend the same school, they're doing a slightly different program. Their program is mostly in French. They don't have that many English classes. They start 1 year before we do, so they've already got their own social scene going on. And it's generally like they're just doing an entirely different thing as compared to us. So as a result of that, there isn't much in common between the two communities. We don't attend the same classes, we don't have the same clubs, we don't do the same things. And yeah, so the French are just like a bit separate, which is ironic because you've come to France, but that's how it is. The second question is, what are a few of the most unique or fascinating subjects that you studied in your M1 year? This is the first question that I've actually received that actually asks about the subjects and what you're going to be studying. So yeah, in the first year, there were actually some really cool subjects that I remember studying. I'm going to tell you about 3 of them. So first, I remember the statistics course was extremely interesting. The statistics that I studied in engineering college when I was doing computer science before this was extremely abstract and formula based, and I had no idea what was going on, but I just knew that I was doing it. But the stats course at HEC was very practical, hands-on, and actually taught us to solve real problems in the real world. One really funny problem I remember solving in class was we tried to calculate the percentage of Donald Trump's Twitter followers that were fake. And yeah, so you get the sense of, the kind of problems that we were solving in class. And I thought that was like super interesting. Another really cool course was leading organizations. The purpose of this class was to learn to navigate your life as an employee, a manager, and a human being. We learned about power and office politics and how to navigate through that drama. We learned how we can network effectively. We learned different kinds of organizational structures and about company cultures, good cultures, bad cultures, and how you can recognize them in your own organization. I think this was a very practical course which you don't generally think about learning when you think of business studies, but it was really useful because we're all gonna go work in organizations of some form or the other in the future. And finally, we had a course on strategy, which I personally found to be extremely inspiring, particularly because of the professor, who was extremely passionate and knowledgeable and made all the cases really fun and interesting. He had, I remember, a very effective approach to class, which was he would make us watch videos of the subject matter, videos of himself explaining the subject matter before the class, so that in the class we already knew the concepts and we could just discuss the cases. I thought that was a far cry from the classes that I've had back in India, where the professor's basically just like reading out concepts from the textbook in the class, which personally I think is kind of useless, because that's what differentiates just learning online in an online course or on YouTube versus, actually attending a class. I feel like this sort of a discussion, case-based learning was a lot more effective than just sitting and learning the concepts, which you could just study on your own. And that way, I think most classes at HEC are discussion and case-based. And that's what makes it worth it over just learning the same things from YouTube or from a book. The group projects also helped us learn how to work with each other and co-create. And the class discussions always helped us challenge each other and learn from each other's ways of thinking. The third question is, how difficult is it actually to get an internship in the gap year? It's actually once you start searching for a gap year internship, that's when you realize that it's completely moot and pointless to compare yourself with other people, even in the same batch. Because for some people, it's really easy to find an internship, but for others, they're not even able to find one till like September after the summer of the first year. This is because, unlike in the bachelor's, where everyone basically just like starts out at the same level, in a master's, particularly a business master's like this one, some people come with 2 years of experience at top-notch, well-known firms, and other people like me, they come here without any experience at all. Also, some people come from amazing colleges with amazing alumni networks, and other people come from colleges that don't have that privilege. Some people speak 3 languages because they've lived in like 3 or 4 different countries, and there's other people who just speak English or maybe one more. And also some people speak French and other people don't. So yeah, you can understand how hard it is to answer this question, because all of these factors matter a lot. In general, I found that in France, getting any kind of job or internship can be quite hard, especially if it's your first one. The first gap year internship can be really hard to get, especially if you haven't had any Western experience before, or experience at a large, well-known company, and especially if you don't speak French. The second internship, in my experience, was actually a lot easier for me to get. I think it's also because by the time you have your second internship, you just know yourself a lot more, you know how to navigate the system better, and you just also adjust your expectations after the first one. But yeah, there were people who got internships, even the first internship, like super early and really easily, but then there were people who didn't get one till like much later. So it's all a generalization, really hard to say. But yeah, it depends on a lot of factors how hard it is to actually get an internship here. But all that being said, I feel like until and unless you just give up and go back home, you will find something eventually. I don't think I know anyone who didn't find anything at all. It may not be like your dream internship, but you will find something. It can be hard, it can take a lot of time, it can require a lot of patience, but I think you will find something eventually. I've actually made an entire video about my gap year experience and how I found internships, where I go a bit more in detail about this, and I think you should check it out. I think it's gonna be somewhere around here. The next question is, have I faced discrimination during my time in France? So I think for this question, I'd like to put it this way. I have never faced any outright racism or discrimination here in France. No one's ever told me to go back to my country. No one's ever made any bad comments just because I'm Indian or I'm brown. And in general, I haven't felt unwelcome here as a result of my skin color. But that being said, that's my personal experience. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I just ignored it, or maybe I just was completely naive and I didn't even realize. And that being said, there have been cases of racism here in France. I've especially heard some incidents from my Chinese friends, especially during this time in 2020. And those situations and those experiences were not cool at all. But I do think there will be people like that everywhere. People who are just completely insensitive, who are not that educated, and people who just want to hurt others for fun. But yeah, I think those kind of people are just going to be everywhere. But I don't think it's something that happens a lot in France, just because I or my friends have not faced it a lot. But when it comes to the language, my life in France became 10 times easier. People became much nicer. after I could speak a bit of French. Even if just at an intermediate level. The way people respond to you completely changes when you start a conversation with them in French, even if it's like basic broken French. As opposed to when you start a conversation in English. I feel like when you start a conversation in English, people kind of feel offended that, oh, you're talking to me in English, I don't want to talk to you. That can happen, but when you start a conversation in French, I feel like they warm up to you a little bit easier. It's annoying, but I don't think it's racist. I think it's just people. I think that's just how people are over here. They really love their language a lot. And I respect that. So yes, they do discriminate on the basis of language, but I think that's completely justified because I feel like it's just a skill that you don't have, which you need to just like live in France. And if you don't have that skill, you will be discriminated against because you don't have that skill. And this affects you in almost every aspect of life in France, and particularly in your job search as well. Alright, so the next and final question, also another really interesting one, which no one's asked me before, is how much time can you take out to travel during your academic year at HEC? And what were some of my coolest travel experiences? So the first semester, when you just reach basically from like September to December, can be like really intense because you have a lot of courses and you have a lot of things to do and you're just like settling in. So I feel in the first semester it's really hard to travel. But the December break is 2 weeks long and you don't really have anything to do in the December break usually in the first year. So that's when you can go traveling for a much longer time. I remember I went to the Netherlands during that time and that was like incredibly fun. After that, however, the second semester has a lot of holidays. I feel like a little too many holidays. At the end of January, there's like 10 days where you can go on another break. And I remember during my first year, I went back to India at that time. In February, I think there's like another week or 10 days and I went to Barcelona and Nice with my sister then. And in April or so, there's another 10 days. And yeah, I don't think I went traveling during that time. I just went to Disneyland because I was like, yeah, you know what, I can't go travel every time I have a break. But you know, the catch is that in the second semester is when you're really starting to look for internships for the gap year. So you can be really stressed out about it. So while there are a lot of breaks, I didn't really find myself in like this mental zone where I could like go travel and enjoy. And also, you know, after a point when you travel so much, it just feels like, you know, I'm just doing it for the heck of it and I'm not really enjoying it and I haven't earned it. So yeah, unless you found an internship really early or like you just don't care, it can be a really stressful time to go traveling. So that's the thing, you know, it's kind of sucky because like you have time, things are pretty cheap, but you're just not in the mental zone to go travel. Because during that time is when you're going to be applying to internships, waiting for interviews, giving interviews, doing all that stuff, and it can be quite stressful. But that was just me. I mean, like maybe my tolerance for stress is like a little low, you know. Maybe it could be that. I think, however, during the gap year is when I think you can like really take advantage of your position, especially if you found an internship in Europe. Most internships in France at least, they allow 1 day per month of internship. So like for a 6-month internship, you can have like 6 paid leaves. So you can actually go on like a nice break during your gap year. And also in between 2 internships, you usually also have some time and that's when you can like go traveling again. Me, I was lucky enough to go to Los Angeles for the first half of my gap year. So, you know, that was like a big travel experience in itself. While I was in LA, you know, I didn't even go traveling anywhere. I just spent like all of my weekends in LA itself because there was just like so much to explore. And yeah, speaking of which, did you know that flights from Paris to New York or Paris to LA are really cheap? They're like 300 to 400 euros if you book them in advance in low season. So yeah, you know, going to the US is an option as well. Speaking of my coolest travel experiences, so my trip to the Netherlands in the December of my first year, I thought that was amazing. On Christmas Day of 2018, me and a friend of mine, we took 2 little bicycles and we just like cycled our way to Kinderdijk, which was this amazing place with like windmills and it was so green and the weather was great. That was like the only day that the weather was good. And it was just absolutely amazing. In my second semester, I remember with a whole bunch of French people and the same guy I went to the Netherlands with, we went to Le Mans and we got an Airbnb there, which was like this huge mill and there was like 20 of us. There was a river behind the mill. It was super green. It was just like an amazing chill weekend. And I remember that was like a really great experience as well. Oh yeah, another really cool experience, which was in my first semester with the same group of French people. I went to Lyon to see the Fête de Lumière and that was amazing. I actually made a video about it. You should go check it out. Oh yeah, and another one was when I went to Disneyland with this friend of mine who is like the biggest Disney fan I've ever seen. He had an annual pass, so we could enter the park 2 hours before everyone else, so we could go to all the rides without having to wait in line, and that was like amazing. You know, when it comes to travel, I think the advice I could give you is this: make a lot of friends, especially European or French friends, and otherwise find friends that love to do cool things. It's so much more fun to go to a place with the locals because that's just a whole different experience, you know, as compared to going as a tourist. I think I'm just gonna make another video on my approach to making friends because that's something that I did in Los Angeles and I was very happy with my social circle there as well. Alright, I think this video ended up becoming much longer than I expected it to be. Thanks a lot to Hriday for sending me all these questions. I thought they were really unique and very different from the admissions based questions that I usually get. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also consider hitting that subscribe button because I'm going to be uploading a lot of content just like this. Oh yeah, by the way, now that I'm here, I'm going to give you like a very quick room tour using my phone. I'm going to do a proper room tour much later, but this is just like a quick preview. So this is the view when you just enter the room. This is like the little kitchenette. You've got a fridge, you've got like a microwave. I bought the drying rack on my own. I have this little thing from IKEA set up to put all my food, which is pretty cool. And then this is like the heater thingy. And I bought that lamp from IKEA as well. And yeah, this is like the desk. This is my favorite part of the room. I think the desk is huge and it's like so comfortable to sit on it, and just like the view outside is just absolutely amazing. Speaking of the view outside, there's also a balcony. So yeah, when the weather's good, you can just like sit out and chill there. And this is like the bed, and that's pretty much it. This is like, yeah, the view of the door and everything. There's also this cupboard, which is cool. So yes, this is my room. All right, see you guys in the next one.